y bienvenidos a un nuevo episodio del podcast Hombre Konsciente. Y el episodio de hoy va a ser muy especial porque aunque me veáis aquí ahora mismo solo, en breve os voy a presentar a una persona muy especial y muy importante para mí. Y esta persona se llama Peter Bennett. Y la diferencia también importante del episodio de hoy es que el episodio por primera vez va a ser en inglés, porque Peter es de origen inglés, por lo tanto él no habla español. Sin embargo, lo que nos va a traer hoy es tan importante que he querido cruzar y traspasar las barreras del idioma para poder traer toda la experiencia y el conocimiento que tiene Peter dentro del mundo del trabajo con hombres y la masculinidad. Y es que Peter es el responsable de la organización Sacred Sons en Europa. Os he hablado quizás en alguna ocasión previa de los Sacred Sons y es una organización americana de trabajo con hombres que lleva ya varios años y que está cambiando la vida de miles, si no cientos de miles de personas y con la que yo mismo me he estado formando durante ya más de año y medio en diferentes retiros y diferentes formaciones que ellos organizan. Entonces, Peter, como os comentaba, es el responsable para Europa de Sacred Sons. Y es una persona tan interesante y que lleva tantos años y tanto tiempo en este trabajo que consideraba imprescindible que la conocierais y que pudiéramos extraer un poquito de su sabiduría. Así que ya sin más, os dejo con la entrevista en inglés, que si tenéis algún problema con el idioma, ya sabéis que la podéis escuchar con los subtítulos en español. No os la perdáis, que es muy, muy buena. Welcome, Peter. Thank you so much for being here. I introduce you, Peter Bennett. Peter Bennett is an amazing person. Is someone that I feel very happy to have met. And we have the pleasure today to have him here. This is the first podcast I'm gonna record in English, so also a very challenging day for me today to have Peter here, who I really I was gonna say worship. I don't know if the word worship is the word, but I think very highly of you, brother, and you are an inspiration. So Peter is the manager for Sacred Sons in Europe. Sacred Sons, we'll talk about it soon, but it's a person that has been doing men's work for a long time already, for many years, and it's actually is his life. I was going to say part of his life, but I think it's his life. So first of all, Peter, welcome, and share with us, if you like, how you arrived here, or maybe I was even thinking that we were going to do a little bit of sync up together. Would that be okay for you?
Yes, brother. Thank you very much for the invitation. Good to see you, Nacho, and appreciate all those who are listening. Yes, my name is Peter Bennett. I am the director of Sacred Sons Europe, and we'd love for everyone, including you, Nacho, to take a big breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. And if you'd like just to shut down your eyes and just to begin by breathing in and out through the nose. This is a great way to regulate our nervous system, to feel more relaxed, to feel safe in the body. A good way to stay connected, to focus your attention, is to feel the cooler air on the inhale and the warmer air on the exhale. Maybe noticing the sensations on the skin, the clothes against your back, the seat, the floor beneath you. What is the temperature of the air? Maybe a taste in your mouth, a smell, Finally, just seeing the darkness behind your eyes, activating all the senses and arriving at the heartbeats in your chest. Finally, for us all to synchronize, I invite 3 breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth, beginning in 3, 2, 1. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Last one we can hold. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. If you like, just to empty your lungs completely, empty the body, empty the mind, empty yourself of any thoughts and emotions, just to be clear, to be centered, and taking in those first breaths with intention. Who is it you'd like to be? Where is it you'd like to be? And allow that vision of the man, the woman, the human being that you are to arrive refreshed and renewed in your body, in your mind, and in your spirit. Whenever you're ready, coming back, maybe with some touch or movement. Slowly opening the eyes. And with that, we are synced. Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much. We're back again. Well, this is a little example of the work that Peter does and that actually changed lives of so many men. And I was saying before, not only so many men, I think so many people, because when you change the life of a man, I think you're changing the life of his family and the people around him. What do you think about that, Peter?
100%, brother. The beauty of men's work is that it's not just men. It begins maybe with a man who feels a little uncertain, right? A little uncomfortable. Maybe there's some fear, some doubt in his life. And then when he crosses the threshold, when he decides to put himself first, right? When he decides to invest in his personal development, right? His leadership, then he can really have an impact, especially at home with his family. And I know that's something that you and I have worked on through the leadership training at Sacred Sons, through the Prime leadership as well here in Portugal. We have another one in November of this year. And now that you are one of our leaders, one of our Wolfpack leads as well, Nacho, you're seeing the impact in the teams that come to the events, in the participants. And really, I have so many stories of people who've changed their lives and been able to impact the lives of those around them. So there's definitely a lot of work to do. However, I have to say, hand on heart, that this work works.
It does. We are the example of it, brother. So it's going to be quite challenging today because, I was reflecting on which topics would I like to talk with you, because this is so interesting and there are so many different topics and it's going to be less than an hour. So I have to be very selective. And of course, first of all, we would like to know a little bit more about you. And apart from the presentation that we have made before, how would you, Peter, describe yourself?
Wonderful. Well, other than the professional title that I have as a director of Sacred Sons, which I am very honored to have been doing this work for Sacred Sons, the biggest, fastest growing, pioneering men's organization in the world. I'm also a leadership advisor and an experiential consultant. So what that means, brother, is I'm starting to work with more than just individuals. I'm working with organizations. I'm working for businesses. I'm working in corporations, governments, etc., to really have an impact on a larger scale. So this is my vision going forwards, that I'm going into the boardrooms, I'm going into the ward rooms as well, with all that's happening geopolitically in the world right now. I know there's so much need for this work, and a way that I can describe what it is I do, other than the obvious, right, men's work and what that means for sacred sons, is embodiment, is somatics. Many people might not know what that means. However, it's to feel in the body first, to have the body as some kind of guide, to navigate from our emotions, because often as men, I can say for myself that I ignored, suppressed, or didn't understand my emotions. I'd often avoid them, escape, right, through drugs, alcohol, women, scrolling on social media, right, masturbation, pornography, all these types of things. And what I've learned is to actually honor those emotions, to feel the body and use this as data, as information for how to act in the world. Instead of react, my thing is respond, right? So feel your heart. My heart is hurting, right? However, what is the guts, your stomach, your intuition guiding you to do? And often when we can align this head, heart, and gut coherence, often people forget to speak about the stomach, right? Which is where we really feel these instincts, these primal urges. Then we can be more aligned. Then we can be more harmonious in how we approach the world. And for me, it's all about the three pillars: mind, body, spirit. I like to say self-inquiry, self-care, and self-love.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for that, brother. And maybe going deeper into you, because I think your story is important, because what you just said, I think I can understand a little bit better now. But the Nacho, the Ignacio that I was when I was a young boy or even a young man, it was very difficult to understand what you're talking about. I probably wouldn't have understand a word. So I wanted to know about you as well when you were a young boy. And there are two topics that I think that are interesting, that I know a little bit about you and would like to invite you to share if you like. And is how was, I mean, I know the relationship with our dad, with our father is very challenging for many of us men. And I heard in one of your interviews that through your relationship with your father, you discovered that you were carrying a lot of rage, but it wasn't your rage. It was your lineage, your masculine lineage rage. And that resonated with me amazingly. And I would like to ask you a little bit about it, if you'd like to share that.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, what I'd like to start with is just to share with the audience and with you how much I feel what it is you're sharing. My body is responding, right? I can feel goosebumps, chicken skin on my arms, because when something really lands, when something feels true, often the body is the first place that reminds us that this is what's happening. My rage that I felt from an early age most likely started before I even had memories, when I was a child, a baby, an infant. My father, maybe similar to many people's fathers, grew up in a very different world, right? Where men were stoic, where men weren't really encouraged to express their emotions, to express how they feel, to be authentic. And my father's father didn't play a role in his life. My dad actually met his dad once after he was born, obviously, and he was there. However, in his adulthood, he didn't actually cross paths. My father was sent away to boarding school when he was 2.5 years old, when he was a baby. And what my dad would do would be sending letters back to his father to say, hey, this is what I'm learning at school, you know, eventually when he learned to read and write. And instead of replying to his letters, my grandfather would write back with all the spelling mistakes corrected, with all the grammar mistakes underlined.
That's tough.
So
That's tough.
you can imagine, right? This is
Mm,
kind of more of a Victorian, more of an old school approach. And so my father carried a lot of resentment from what I've understood towards his father, towards the lack of a father figure. So he, in his own way, made more of an effort for me, wanted to be more involved in my life. However, that didn't stop him from feeling that anger towards the masculine, right? From feeling maybe unconsciously the programming, the imprints that his father had on him. So my father would often be very aggressive, right? Loud and shout. He would also hit me, right? Like as is a little bit, it's not really accepted in today's modern society to punish children. We call it corporal punishment, to slap, right? To spank. However, in my father's day, that's what they did. So that's what I received. And I internalized that pain, that physical pain, and also that emotional pain of being punished. And I got very angry as a young man. However, it was more passive aggressive because I didn't have a lot of places to put that anger other than martial arts. I grew up being a karate fighter, competitions where I would go up against other young men. However, when I became an adult and I started to experiment with different ways to express myself, different substances, for example, I felt very broken. I felt like I couldn't really speak about how I was feeling. And we encourage this at Sacred Sons. We encourage this in the work that we do and that I do with organizations, is to be very transparent with our feelings, with what's happening. We call it vulnerability. However, honesty is the policy, right? So if I could have this safe space, a place where I feel psychologically able to express what it is that I'm experiencing, then I would have been able to shift maybe some of these stories, these limiting self-beliefs. However, from an early age all the way till adulthood, till my 20s, my early 30s, I had a chip on my shoulder, as we say. I had aggression, I had violence in my blood. And when I would drink alcohol, when I would smoke ganja, when I would do drugs, party, be out in the world, I'd often take that out on authority figures. So I'd get into fights with bouncers, the security at clubs. I once ran and charged at the police because I was having an argument with a friend and I thought that they were interrupting me. And so I got arrested the day of my mother's birthday as well. And I had to bail myself out of jail. And it was a very difficult time in my life, not understanding who I am, having so much chaos, so much confusion. And I really resonate with a lot of men, young men, middle-aged men, older men who feel like this, that it's so difficult to really acknowledge this little boy, maybe these original wounds, this trauma, which is now a word that many people use, and it's a difficult thing maybe for some to acknowledge in themselves. However, if you had a difficult or even just challenging memories, times that were a little bit hard for you to comprehend, to understand, then you likely are operating maybe unconsciously through your behaviors from this place. So I really invite those like myself who had rage, who had anger, who had disappointment, who had grief, sadness, felt alone, felt like you don't belong, to look at what those memories are, to find someone like myself as a one-to-one coach, as an advisor, a consultant, to find organizations like Sacred Sons, to just start looking inward, to do this first pillar, this mental pillar of self-inquiry. Why is it that I'm acting this way? And what is it I don't like about myself? So I can start to reprogram and rewrite that story.
Thank you so much for that sharing, brother. And that resonates with me so much. And I remember the moments that we shared together. You didn't really share this complete story with me, but there was something that I could see in you that made me feel that we went through a similar thing, no? And it's interesting because I have felt the same thing as you have. Maybe I would even say when you are talking about how you channel that rage, no, through combat with other men, against the police and everything, well, that was a way of letting that out, no? And I was thinking I wasn't even possible to do that. In my case, it was all suppression. Like if I think of myself doing what you said, maybe the memory of my father was so strong of just suppressing that, no, I can't do that, But all that rage was inside of me, And maybe we can talk about this a bit, which is what do you do with that, no? Once you discover that you have all inside of yourself, because I had this image, no, of you in some of the Sacred Sons events, how to channel that rage. And I see that in myself so much, like there is so much that need to come out of myself. So would you like to share with us what to do with that once we discover it's inside of us, please?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Joe. I really feel your heart, right? And this is important for people who are listening. Often we operate from the head. Often we get caught in story, right? And it can be hard to truly feel the body. As I said, the body is the gateway, right? It's like a tuning fork. If you know that ding, and the more we can vibrate, the more we can feel those frequencies, right? Like the tingle on the skin when something feels true, the more we can access these emotions and express them. It's like pressure. If pressure continues to build up and there's no release, then eventually we're going to explode. And I'm sure there's many people who are listening, yourself included, Nacho, when you have exploded, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it happens at the worst of times, right? And so for me, yes, I was able to channel, right? I was able to express that rage. However, it was unconscious, okay? It got me in trouble. It got me arrested. It got me in the hospital. I was nearly at death's door. I had a big attack with some gang when I was living in London when I was 20 years old, got 17 stitches in my head because I didn't have a good place to bring this rage, to bring these emotions, right? So for those people who maybe feel that, however, they're uncertain of themselves, maybe they don't trust themselves. And I'm speaking specifically to people pleasers, Nacho, okay? I'm sure you can relate. Yeah, there's times where you say yes to someone, you really say no. And often the people pleaser is just the one who is angry and internalizes that rage towards themselves. They don't trust or respect themselves. They don't value themselves enough to have boundaries, right? To be able to say no, not now, or let me wait and think or feel what the reply is going to be, let me sleep on it and I'll give you an answer tomorrow, right? I too have been a people pleaser, and that's that passive aggressiveness where I start to say yes and promise the world, right? Over promise and then under deliver, right? Because really what I am actually saying is no to me, right? When I'm saying yes to everyone else. So instead of saying, oh, to all the people listening, the way to channel your rage is to do martial arts or go to the gym, right? Go for a run when you're angry and really feel that, and then come home and journal or put it into your work or into your relationships. The best place to really bring this rage is the archetype of the warrior. Right. And we've done this work at Sacred Sons. I do this work one-on-one and with organizations as well. And it's about boundaries. So to begin, let's do an exercise. We're actually doing this head work, this mental exercise, the first pillar of self-inquiry. Begin by writing down a list of all the things that you do not like, beginning with yourself, right? All those aspects that you might be ashamed of, you might be embarrassed about, you might reject in yourself. I did a whole list of this when I was in my mid-20s, right? I don't like that I'm shy. I don't like that I'm angry, right? At like people walking slowly down the street, right? I don't know if you have some of this. Living in London, often you have people like tourists pulling their bags, looking at all the architecture. And I'm like in a rush, this rat race energy, which has changed a lot since I moved here to beautiful Sintra, Portugal in nature. However, there was still this angry city man, inside of me. So I wrote a list of all the things I don't like about myself. I wrote all the things I don't like about other people in my life. I don't like about my reality, my world, right? Living in London, having to constantly go to work 9 to 5, all these things. And that's where I began to establish my boundaries, all right? Channel that anger into no more. This is the action. If I don't like being angry at strangers, then I'm going to look at what that is. The action is to recognize where that anger comes from. And like that story you heard on the podcast where I felt my father's anger when I sat at a fire at Medicine Festival in the UK, like 5 years ago, I realized that wasn't my anger. And I realized I don't want to carry my father's anger, my grandfather's anger, the lineage of the Bennetts and the anger that they've carried for all my ancestry. And I started to shift that anger by putting it into boundaries. No longer will I carry this anymore. So great mental exercise to then bring into the body. And then you can use these different body tools like martial arts, like the gym, right? I'm sure you're very familiar with the exercise and how to express. And when we come to a Sacred Sons event, we have our primal recalibration ceremonies, or we used to call them rage ceremonies, where we all circle up, the big group of men, and 2 people stand in the middle. One person screams, shouts, expresses with no words, just emotion, just sounds. And the other person stands there and just holds it, not reacting, not responding, not encouraging, not giving empathy or compassion, just poker face, still. And because of that witnessing, we can feel this come through of us. No need to perform, right? No need to prove that we're a man, that we're a warrior. We can cry if we need to. We can go down to the floor and hit the ground with our fists. And that type of environment, when it comes through the body, when it's expressed in this sacred space, right? The spirit of being in a circle with all these men who are all vibrating at the same frequency, that can then help move this energy, move this emotion so that you don't have to hold it. And actually the final thing, Nacho, is not to carry this to the next generation. And this is one of the most important things about the work that we do, that it is ancestral. For many of the men listening, the women listening, right? Those who are parents, becoming parents, those who have nephews, nieces, families, even the businesses, the employees, the colleagues that you work with. This work is about clearing your lineage, clearing your ancestry, so that you don't have to give that anymore, so that you can be responsible for your reactions, for your triggers, and you can break that pattern and you can respond.
Amazing sharing, brother. And it's so powerful because I retained this last sentence that you said about clearing your lineage. And there is another topic that is to me very related with that. When I think about you clearing my lineage, related to my father, as you said, the relationship with my father and my mother wasn't good at all. That was my example, when I was a child. And due to that, I understood that I never believed that I was worthy of a real, true, beautiful relationship. And I'm sharing to you this because I know that you have gone through a similar thing. And I'm bringing this to the fact of, we were talking about this rage coming from our parents, but what about also this dealing with relationships, romantic relationships, from the external validation part of ourselves, that validation that we never got from our family, and then I have been looking that outside in romantic relationships, but not from the true heart, but more from having sex and finding that validation in sex with women with which I wasn't really committed. And again, I'm sharing this because I know you have gone through a similar thing, but the amazing thing is that you have gone through a more beautiful process and you are now in an amazing, beautiful relationship. So I'm inviting you again, brother, to share about that if you like.
Yes, brother. Thank you so much. And it's interesting that we sort of opened discussing the father, right? This father wound. And many people may be able to resonate with that. However, they might also have a story about their mother. And I
Mm,
definitely do. If anything, that is a work in progress. Whereas my relationship with my father, because of this moment around the fire at Medicine Festival, where I brought this home to my father and I said, why don't you like me, right? Why do you always call me useless? Why
mm,
do you not respect me? And eventually, by screaming, by shouting, by crying in front of my father as a 30-something-year-old man, he said that he didn't, he said that I was a disappointment. And because of that, it began a whole new journey, a whole new dynamic with us. And I didn't have to seek my father's approval, right? So many of us want our father to tell us that he's proud of us, right?
mm,
So many of us have emotionally distant, I like to say emotionally illiterate fathers, right? Who don't have the words, who don't have the tools to express how they feel. And that's okay. You know, I've forgiven my father. It's not that he did it on purpose. It's not
mm,
his fault, right? He just grew up in a different time. And now him and I have the best relationship. He truly sees me. He sees the work that I'm doing. He tells everyone, oh, yeah, my son is a men's work coach. He's a leader. He's a director of Sacred Sons. He works in well-being, right? And it's
mm.
awesome.
Amazing,
However,
brother.
the work, thank you, the work with my mother is still ongoing. So some of you might feel this, right? Some of you might have had a challenging relationship with your mother. In my case, she was very overbearing. She wanted to protect me from the world. She wanted to save me from the pain and hurt that she experienced, right? And what I
Yeah.
heard from one of my mentors, Hunter, uh, was that women often feel that they're too much, right? Whereas men feel that we're not enough. And so our relationships are based on that. And
Mm,
what I learned in my journey, right, inwards, because this is where it begins, this self-inquiry, is that my masculine, right, needed to have like a fiery expression. It needed to get into the rage. It needed to have the boundaries. It needed the warrior, right, to step up for myself so I could truly become the king that I am. And there's lots of work around sovereign that I do, around claiming your life, right, about choosing and channeling the direction in which you're going, right, to truly be a man of integrity, to be a man on purpose, right? That heartfelt resonance with the world when you're truly authentic.
mm,
And yet, this feminine that often men feel is lacking in their lives, they will seek out in others, just like I did. And the way that I described what you shared there, Nacho, was seeking intimacy in all the wrong places, right? Intimacy, inter me, you see. To be able
mm,
to have that witnessing, that observing, where we are so safe because this person knows exactly who we are. We're not hiding. However, I mistook physical intimacy, right? Sex, lust, womanizing, with having that moment of, I can just melt in this woman's arms. She holds me, she feels me. And yet there was no commitment. There was
mm,
no, I'm going to continue on this journey, because I was scared that when they finally knew who I was behind all the player, like, you know, I've done bunch of dating shows you might not know about. I was on
mm,
MTV. I won 3 different dating shows. I've done all this kind of like, yeah, you know, check me out, kind of peacock, as we
mm.
call it, right?
Yeah.
However, it wasn't serving me. It felt empty. All these relationships didn't get me anywhere. They just got me back to square one. And
Mm,
so some of the men who feel this, who feel that maybe they are womanizing, right? They are just chasing women, that lust, sex, pornography is an addiction, right? Like it's taking over their lives, that they can't truly feel that self-love, that self-worth, right? That feeling of being enough, of being more than enough, because they're constantly comparing themselves, right, to the relationships that they're in. They're constantly getting lost in relationships. They're avoidant, right? Or they're attached anxiously, right? All these different ways to have insecurity, right? So if you feel like this, men, one really important thing that I started to do for myself was celibacy, right? And a big part of that was holding my seed, right? Semen retention, not masturbating to climax, having moments where I hold all that energy. Maybe I would massage my body. Maybe I would take myself out on a date, right? Just solo, by myself, the things I would love to do with a partner one day. However, honor myself, honor those aspects of me, that little feminine part of myself that wants to be looked after, that wants to be spoilt, that wants to be a bit of a princess, a bit of a queen, have a bath, light some candles, burn some incense, right? It doesn't sound very manly, and yet it's so important. And the beautiful thing about this, Nacho, is the more that I was celibate, the more I said no and had my boundaries to women in my life, because I didn't feel that they were exactly what I was looking at. I had my lists of do nots. And once I had my boundaries, I started to write my lists of do. So another exercise for you men, once you've done your do nots, right? Once you have your boundaries, start to then build what it is that you do want in your life. And begin with yourself. Begin with the type of man that you're going to be when you have your life partner, maybe when you have your beloved. In my case, my fiance, right? And we're going to be married next year. And it's such a beautiful, thank you, brother. Such a beautiful unfolding, such a beautiful way that this work has really proven it works. Because I wrote a list of what it is that I would like to feel on my own when I'm in this relationship. I feel whole. I feel my skin tingling. I feel so much love in my heart. I feel so safe, right? And I feel strong when I have her on my arm. I feel this protector, provider energy, right? And so when I'm with her and I started writing these lists, visualizing what it would be like with this woman, I started to see people's eyes on us. Oh, wow, they look so shiny. They look so radiant. And I felt what that was like. I actually started to remember my future. And this is where the third phase, right, this self-love pillar comes into place. Okay, I started with the mind, with writing it down, right? Then into the body with feeling it, right? Not just seeing it, feeling it in the body. And then the third is this energy of gratitude, right? Receiving, right? This self-love. Wow, I feel so grateful to have this woman by my side. All the work that we're going to be doing together, all the lives that we're going to impact in a good way, and having this beautiful home, having children running around, having land where we're growing our own food, right? Where we get water from the ground, right? The sun is shining. Like, I'm living in London at this point, Nacho. Like, I'm going to work. It's like the concrete jungle. It's grey. It's raining most days of the year. And I'm just like, I can feel the sun on my skin. And because of all that work, right, because of creating this reality and starting to change my frequency, right, starting to change the way I felt about myself, I then started to attract that, because I said no to the things that didn't resonate, that don't serve me anymore. No more casual sex, right? No more lust, no more chasing. I'm going to call it in. I'm going to bring that energy to me. And as a result, 3.5 years ago, I met my partner, Sandy, and we are now engaged. So just to close this, if I can, what's funny, brother, because we went to Medicine Festival in the UK this past week, and we both led a sacred union ceremony. So we're doing this work. We're going to be going to Egypt in December to run a retreat, the Sacred Union initiation, in the temples, in the pyramids where we have private access.
Wow.
And all of these things I was visualizing, right? To be able to do this with my partner. And the funny thing is, bro, the first person we saw when we got to festival said to my partner, Sandy on Instagram, I remember when Peter was celibate and he was saying he's not going to get into any relationships with anyone because he's waiting for the right person, because he's manifesting this reality. And here you are. And that was the first of many people saying to Sandy, by the way, we heard about you before he even knew about you. We heard all these things that he was creating. And now finally you're here. And she was like, wow, like it works.
Now I'm getting goosebumps. Thank you so much for that story. So, I don't know, inspiring, and also like, wow, when you hear something like that is possible, but I guess it wasn't easy for you because, I mean, when you are in the situation you were talking about, just remaining celibate and just stopping everything around you and just focusing on what you want out of life, which actually is not only about relationship, it's about your whole life, isn't it, Peter?
Exactly. Yeah, it's funny, bro. Like I do this now, obviously with the work one-on-ones. I'm also going to be doing a free masterclass in a week's time on the 26th of August
Okay.
online, invite only, because we really want to maintain like a strong group for this class. And then afterwards, I'm going to launch a program, my first ever program. You'll be surprised to hear, because I do all the work with Sacred Sons. I've been working with different organizations. I've had over 3,000 hours of doing this work. I tend not to use the word facilitation anymore. For me, it's really about mastery. It's about authority, like being an expert. Even though like my mentor who I had a recent call with has been working in men's work for 25 plus years. Like I'm only 8-9 years in, so I still have a lot to yeah, still have a lot to learn. However, I'm doing this masterclass and the follow-up program called Lead Yourself First. And what I really truly believe for all those who are listening, right, is this is how we do it, right? For men, for women, everything in between, is by getting clear, all right, on what is our purpose, right? What does it feel like in the heart, guided by the gut, right? So that the head isn't the only thing that's pushing us forward, because often people can reach a place of success in their life and yet it feels empty. You know, I'm not going to speak for you. However, I know that you've done amazing things in the work that you do as a firefighter, and that's such a noble cause, right? And yet it's exhausting, and yet I'm sure you're surrounded by people maybe who aren't your tribe, who aren't your soul, like what we call it like people who are kindred spirits, people who don't necessarily have the same values as you. And so for people who feel like that, they're like, wow, like I've got lots of success in my life, or I've done great things, and yet I'm sacrificing my time, I'm sacrificing my relationships, I don't get to see my children or my partner, or when I do, I'm stressed out and I'm angry or I'm upset. You know, I'm not eating well, I'm not exercising. All of these things are symptoms to show that we're not fully doing exactly what we need to do to be the authentic expression of who we were born to be. And I know that's a lot of words. However, for those interested in the masterclass and to lead yourself first, you can find me at Men's Work Coach or mensworkcoach.com/masterclass.
Thank you so much for that. We will leave all the information for that masterclass and the description of the episode, because I really recommend you everything that Peter is doing, because to me, he's my mentor. And I always try to recommend the best, and the best that has helped me. And Peter is that. So if you're looking for what he's talking about, please sign up and be there. And I wanted to share with you an example. You know, I think it's perfect to give this example because, I mean, Peter said that we met for the first time in Barcelona, actually, last year in immersion. I think it was October. I'm not completely sure if it was September, October. We met for a couple of days. It was amazing to see Peter in action. It was, I think, the best from the weekend. And I remember that after the event, there were a lot of people. There were many people wanted to talk to you. I was more looking for, okay, I need my time to myself, because there were so many things going on, you know. And I remember you looking me in the eyes and saying, brother, I want you to be in the leadership training program. I think this is for you. And you were looking me in the eyes. No, it was very touching, although I was really needing to be spending time with myself. Then afterwards, of course, I didn't need much more than that. We met in Sintra, Portugal, your hometown right now, where you organize this prime leadership training. Again, it was amazing. And not only everything that we experienced and we learned, you gave me the opportunity to have a group of men that have been accompanying me since, and they are very important people for me now. And actually, not only what you share and what you taught me in this process, but also having these men with me these months allow me to take a very important decision not long time ago. I think I might have shared it with you, but now it's completely official. But this is the first time that I'm telling this like publicly like this, and it's to just share that I work as a firefighter. but actually 4 days ago I communicated officially that I will no longer be anymore a firefighter from October this year, because I am fully committed with the work that we do, brother, and going to leave also, since like you're in love with Sintra, I am in love with Tarifa, which is a city in the south of Spain, which is amazing, which I hope that one day you can come and visit. I would like to be your host. And yeah, you were talking about being your authentic self, and I really felt, as you said, no, like sometimes we are in this amazing life, like, yeah, you are a firefighter, you are like a hero, everyone is saying the kind of things that you just said, no, like, oh, it's such amazing the job that you do. And sometimes I can make the mistake of saying, well, that's enough, I achieved what every other man would want it. But the question is, what do I want? How do I feel with this? And to me, it was clear that this question was inside of me, and I didn't really have the courage to take the final step that I was missing, And this work with you, this process, this being led and guided by you, and also with the men who are my accountability partners now, helped me to really take the decision. And it feels so amazing. And like there's few more things that life could give me right now. And I thank you for that, brother. And I wanted to share this experience just because it's very related to what you're gonna help other men do in this process that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, brother. And I have to say, Nacho, your presence at the first Barcelona immersion where we met was felt. And I often share this phrase, permission giver. I don't quite know how that's going to translate. Like, my Spanish is so-so, my Portuguese is even lower. However, the sense that when someone steps into a room and you can really feel their leadership, right? And I can sense that you've done a lot of work already, that you obviously in your previous profession as a firefighter had to make some very important decisions, right? Under pressure, in crisis. And this is something that I learned as well in the work that I do, that we're really preparing people for the difficulties, for the challenges ahead. And there's going to be challenges, brothers, okay, sisters, whoever's listening. Life is full of ups and downs, right? Initiations, where if we can see them as something for us, not against us, when life is happening through us, not to us. Does that make sense? I often speak about this victim mentality, this drama triangle where everything is so difficult and there's so much shame and blame, right, in the world. However, I'm really inviting people to take responsibility for their environment, right? And the first place to look is inward. I keep saying this, self-inquiry, right? What is it about you that's making your life challenging? And how can you turn that challenge into a blessing, a lesson, so that you can learn from it and you can start to implement and integrate that, so that whenever these things come up, you can respond instead of react. And we have lots of opportunities for men to come to Sacred Sons to experience that, like you, the permission giver that you are, so that you can help impact other men around you, right? So that you can start to do men's work, baby. So I have a couple of dates, if that's okay, that I can share.
Please.
Wonderful.
Please
so I have these written down here. We're going to be in Denmark at our embodied masculine experience this September 10th to the 13th. So people who'd really love to experience Sacred Sons in a beautiful environment with up to like 60 men, we're all going to be doing this work, talking about these things, would highly recommend going to the EMX in Denmark. For those who maybe can't travel that far, who maybe live closer to other parts of Europe, we have our immersions, similar event to where I met Nacho, which is a 2-day event, Saturday and Sunday. It's near a city. You find a place for yourself to stay. You provide your own lunch. And we have one in Amsterdam, or at least near to Amsterdam, in Utrecht, the Netherlands, on the 24th and the 25th of October. We also have one in Zurich, Switzerland, on the 24th and the 25th of October. And finally, closing out 2026, Prime Leadership is coming back to Portugal, where I met Nacho the second time. This is for advanced leadership, for people who would like to also do the leadership training, a 10-week online intensive course that I run myself. I've done many of them. I'm currently running one. I'll be running another one in a month's time. And then in November from the 19th to the 22nd, 30 minutes drive from Lisbon Airport. We'll be running another Prime Leadership. So if anyone is interested, please do reach out. You can find me online.
Thank you so much for that, Peter. And yeah, I need to insist on that as well, because in Spain, we'll talk about Europe now, but I can talk about Spain, which many of the people who would be listening are from Spain. We haven't had many opportunities to go through an experience like the one that Peter is sharing. And when was the first time that Sacred Sons was in Spain? Was it last year, or how many years ago?
First time we were in Spain would have been 3 years ago, around that. We did our first immersion in Barcelona. Yeah.
Okay, so it's really a great opportunity. Like, for example, this year we had the opportunity as well to be together around 90 to 100 men in Barcelona for this event that is called Convergence. And there were many people who have never experienced something like what Sacred Sons is bringing to us. And it was so amazing to live and to witness. And there are not many possibilities to live something like this. So if you have the chance, as Peter is saying, to travel to these beautiful countries, it's also, to me, it's an opportunity to travel. No, you've never been to Denmark, then go there. Go to this EMX, which, by the way, there will be some of my brothers and accountability partners are gonna be there. And if not, then go to Utrecht, as you said. There's gonna be many chances, because Peter is pretty active as a director of Sacred Sons in Europe. And maybe as the last question, Peter, because I had a list and I think we have only made 2, so this is live. But maybe related to what we're saying, I wanted to ask you, Sacred Sons is an organization that was created in the US, and you are the director, for Europe. So how do you see this men's work and masculinity situation in Europe in general, with your experience that you have had in these last years?
Wow. As I'm sure you know, right, cultures are very different across the world. And I've done men's work in the States, in Africa, in Europe. I've yet to go to South America, although I've been invited to reach out to our brothers in Mexico, which I'm very excited about. And yet, despite the cultural differences, which I'm very attuned to, so when I go to a new land, activating a new region, we make sure we have brothers from those places who can teach us the words, the songs, right, the traditions of the land. There's also this underlying archetype that, as we've spoken to on this call, many of us men feel, right? Whether it's challenges with that father or mother energy, right? Whether it's like insecurity, or it's hypersexualization, whether it's addiction, right? Whether it's avoidance. There's so much that really we can all share and experience. And so there really isn't that much that separates us, brother. In some ways, that's all an illusion. And we're coming to a time where we have to learn what connects us, right? And I kind of have this image that I felt recently about the oceans, right? And how so often it could be seen as maybe a boundary or a barrier, right? This natural border that separates lands. And yet, no, the waters is what brings us together, right? So we can float or swim, right? Or navigate these oceans, these seas, rivers, right? The lakes, so that we can meet what's on the other side. We can be greeted by the other tribes, our families on the other continents and countries. And the reason why I use water as an example, because it is emotion, right? When we think or feel into the elements, waters are emotions. And when we can start to see the waters, when we can crystallize, we can get clear on how we are feeling, brothers, sisters. And we can do that inner work, and we can calm and center ourselves so that we are still and silent. Then we can see these waters as a way to connect, as a way to clear, to cleanse ourselves, so we can get out of our own way. We can step out of that drama triangle of being a victim, of being the villain, the rescuer, the hero, even in our story. And we can rewrite that story. We can become the victor, right? This is what I like to speak to: the victim, the victor, and the vessel. And the beautiful thing about the victor is, yes, coach, get people to help challenge you to recreate who you are, so that we can eventually evolve into that authentic aspect of ourselves, right? And be the vessel where, as you shared the word, channel, right? Or transmit or express what's real, what is true. And that is a beautiful way to see water as well, as this way just to come through us with no resistance, right? Like a beautiful waterfall, just clearing and cleansing us, right? How wonderful it would be if we didn't have to carry all this weight anymore, all this heaviness, all this density. So many people are struggling, bro. And I would love to have spoke more about like the geopolitical state of the world right now, and what's happening with corruption, what's happening with confusion, chaos, right? Because I often see that actually what's really happening externally is happening to us internally, So I'll remind people, right? If you're scrolling, doom scrolling on your phone, and you're looking at the news and it's getting you activated and triggered, all scared, if you're a conspiracy theorist like I was, right? And it's like them versus us, the world is out to get me, right? Then look at what's happening internally. What is it about yourself that you're judging, right? Where is it maybe that you are out of alignment, where you are operating in a toxic way, right? Where is it that you take advantage or manipulate or lie, right? Because all these things are here for us to learn from, to grow from, right? To see the parasites not as things that are taking from us, to see the parasites within us that are giving us the opportunity to remove those blockages, to remove that judgment, that resistance, so that we can be clear, so that we can be centered. And this is why Lead Yourself First, this work that I'm creating for leaders, for established men and women who are really making an impact, doing interesting things in the world, will help to bring through this new template, this new era of people who are putting maybe the planet and people before profit. Because that's a big thing that's happening, Nacho. People in maybe corporate positions, in politics as well, are more concerned about the bottom line, about making money, about taking advantage of the system. However, my new way of seeing the world is, how can I change those systems within myself? How can I have a bigger impact on the world, where it's not just one man at a time, it's one office at a time, it's one company at a time, it's one country, one planet. And that is how I really invite people who are interested in this work to see you as being the change, you as being the spearhead, the arrow that is going through this world and leading everything with you.
Amazing, Peter. I was gonna ask you to leave your final message, but I think you just did. So thank you so much for that. But always, as you always do, I think it would be a nice way to close this amazing talk, inviting you to share one word with which you would like to end this conversation that we had today.
Yeah, well, maybe I can need all of us who are listening, right, watching, to take a big breath in through the nose, out through the heart. Maybe just feeling from top to toe your body relaxing. And if you like, just getting 10, 15% more comfortable with where you're sitting or standing, adjusting your spine. Straight, stable, and also soft, flexible. And just start to connect with the breathing. And so many of us go through life doing, right, our to-do lists, right? Checking off the list of things that we have to do, our responsibilities, our duties. A lot of stress, a lot of rushing, a lot of running. Just giving yourself a moment to connect with that timelessness, that spaciousness, the beingness, right? Cultivating presence instead of performance. Feel your body and then your heart. And dropping from the heart into your belly just by breathing, just by being. This is a way to connect with your authentic truths, with your leadership, with your sovereignty. And when you feel yourself really in the body, grounded, and also expansive, as if your energy is filling up the room, filling up the neighborhood where you are, filling up the town, village, city, country, continent, the whole planet, and expanding that energy down through the solar system, up through the galaxy, across the universe, the multiverse, all of you expanding beyond time and space. And then we'll take a big breath, bringing it all back into the body in 3, 2, 1. Hold that breath, tense the body, feel yourself vibrating. And release. And in that moment of clarity, feeling one word that can carry you through this next chapter of your life. Maybe it's that one hidden pattern that needs to be changed. What is the fuel? What is the fire? What is the water, the earth, the air that can build this new reality that you are co-creating? I invite you, Nacho, if you feel good, to share that word out loud, and for all the listeners to do the same.
For me, it's clearly inspiration, brother.
And for me, it is trust. And if you're ready, opening the eyes, coming back to the space. Thank you, bro. This has been a true honor. Really appreciate it.
Same thing, brother. Thank you so much for this hour that we have spent together. A real pleasure, and looking forward to keep sharing spaces with you and all the people listening. Remember, you're going to have all the information to contact Peter and to join his spaces, the description of today's talk. So thank you again, Peter. Have a wonderful day.
All the love. Peace.